The 1960s were a decade marked by notable true crime stories that captured public attention and still intrigue people today. One of the most infamous true crime stories from the early 1960s involves the Black Dahlia murder, which remains unsolved, but another significant case from this period is the Boston Strangler murders. The Boston Strangler, 1962 to 1964. Victims: Albert DeSalvo, the man widely believed to be the Boston Strangler, was linked to the murders of 13 women between 1962 and 1964, although he was never convicted of the crimes. The victims, who ranged in age from their 50s to 85, were sexually assaulted and strangled in their homes. Their bodies were often found posed in a provocative manner, leading police to believe the murders were the work of a single person. Details of the case: the women who fell victim to the Boston Strangler were mostly older, living alone in the Boston area. The first known victim was Anna Sleezers, whose body was discovered in her apartment in June 1962. Over the next 2 years, more women were found strangled in similar circumstances. All the murders had certain common elements. They were all sexually assaulted. The women were strangled with stockings or other items. The victims were often found in an unnerving state, with their legs spread and their bodies arranged in a manner that suggested a personal and chilling connection. Investigation: at first, police believed they were dealing with multiple killers, but over time, they began to see a pattern. In 1964, Albert DeSalvo, a man with a criminal history, came forward claiming to have knowledge of the murders. He was already incarcerated for unrelated crimes, including a series of sexual assaults. His confessions seemed to fit the pattern of the Boston Strangler murders, and he was eventually charged with the crimes. However, there were significant inconsistencies in his confession, and many questions arose about whether he was truly the killer or if he had confessed to something he did not commit. DeSalvo's confession: DeSalvo's confession was detailed, but it was also later called into question. He claimed to have murdered the women after gaining access to their homes by pretending to be a repairman or using other ruses. He was known to have been in the area during some of the killings, and the police used his confession as a basis for charging him. However, there were problems with his statements. He did not provide enough details to prove he was directly involved in each murder. His confession seemed to have elements that were simply too perfect, leading some investigators to believe that he was fabricating details for attention. Additionally, forensic evidence, including semen samples found at the crime scenes, did not initially match DeSalvo's DNA, adding to the uncertainty surrounding his involvement. Theories and questions: DeSalvo was never convicted of the murders, and he spent years in prison for unrelated crimes before being stabbed to death in 1973. The case remained open, and several theories emerged after his death. 1. Was DeSalvo the true Boston Strangler? Some believe that DeSalvo was indeed the killer, and his confessions, while flawed, were largely true. Others think he may have taken credit for the crimes as a way to garner attention or even fame. 2. Could there have been multiple killers? Some investigators theorized that the Boston Strangler could have been a series of copycat killers, rather than one individual. 3. A cover-up or a different suspect. Other theories suggest that DeSalvo was the victim of a miscarriage of justice, and the true killer may have never been identified. Recent developments: in 2013, DNA testing was conducted on evidence collected from the victims. The results linked Albert DeSalvo to the murder of Mary Sullivan, the final known victim of the Boston Strangler. This has reignited the debate about his guilt and whether he was indeed the perpetrator of all 13 murders, or just some of them. Legacy of the case: the story of the Boston Strangler has had a lasting impact on popular culture. The case was widely covered in the media, and it became the subject of books, movies, and documentaries. It remains one of the most notorious unsolved murder cases in U.S. history, and its unresolved nature has kept investigators and true crime enthusiasts searching for the truth. The Boston Strangler case exemplifies the type of chilling, enigmatic true crime story that captivated the public in the 1960s, leaving many questions unanswered and fueling ongoing debates about justice, criminal psychology, and the reliability of confessions.